Alan Crowder, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you here. And I know you from years and years and years ago, being introduced by our good friend Joe Bonnell. Give him a shout out. When you were a serial entrepreneur.
Yes.
Throwing breads at Jimmy John's, right?
I was, yes.
You were
2010.
You owned how many Jimmy John's?
I just had two.
Just two.
Yeah.
And so you were doing that. And but I'm going to ask you, tell me your story.
Going back to when I did Jimmy John's, and then I did that for about 10 years. I've always had a extracurricular hobby of home theater.
Yeah.
Smart gadgets, techie guy. About 9 years into Jimmy John's, I had a kid and didn't want to work, the 60 hours a week and being away from my daughter as much.
Yeah.
So I looked into other avenues. Had a friend who was kind of doing the same thing, wanted to transition into what you call the smart home installation aspect of things and seeing where that could take him. And so we agreed to partner up, sold my franchises shortly thereafter, and then got into this business in around 2019-ish.
Okay.
And then I remember you contacting me out of the blue on Facebook or something and seeing what I'd gotten into and said that you guys were kind of interested in expanding that in your category and that you're pretty unfamiliar with it. And I was too at the time. So
we've grown together in it. Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, in our custom homes, we used to just have a really simple offering, right? And so it was somebody who worked with us that did great but they had limitations, and the technology was evolving so quick. And so, had to find somebody that could follow, us in what we're doing with our custom homes. So
no, it was great. It was actually really good timing and has worked out for me and allowing me to learn and do new stuff and install new things in people's homes. And it's been really good. And I learn every day. I just got done getting more certifications today. So it's just.
What'd you get today?
I got certified for a piece of equipment called Mad VR. It's a high-end display processor for home theater.
For home theater VR.
Yeah, Mad VR. It's not a VR system.
Okay.
It's just that name does kind of lead people to think VR, but
I got to wear a headset.
It's not a headset.
Okay.
It's definitely a display processor to actually just make your displays better. But that's what I had to do after watching 5 hours of YouTube videos and then taking a test.
There you go. So that wasn't too hard.
It was 75 questions, actually.
Yeah?
It was pretty serious. I was actually had my palms sweaty. I was like, this is like going back to school. It was weird because it was one of the more serious tests I've taken. But, whatever. It was good. So
Digital Home Colorado is the name of your company now.
Yes.
And I went out and did a little stalking today. Your Google reviews are awesome right now. So good job on you.
I try.
Yeah. Do a good job. And what are like the three highest offerings, or let's say your customer base? What's a lot of the customers wanting your services in their home for? Like just the top three.
Top three, something that's really important in my business is lighting control. That's probably my top. And then, whole home audio is another branch, and then actually home theater. So those are probably my three top focuses on trying to reach those types of clients. Once you get past that, I get calls for mounting televisions and stuff like that. So, but lighting control, whole home audio, and home theater are my three main focuses of my business.
Where would home automation, is that even a current term that we should be using?
So, home automation, it takes into account everything in the home. So there's a couple different sayings. Some people say a connected home, and then some people say a smart home.
Okay.
They're two different things. A connected home, is what we do at the beginning of the pre-wire, where we're putting the actual infrastructure into the home to connect all the devices if we so choose down the road. That's a connected home that allows the homeowner the ability, if they want to, in the future, to make their home smart per se, or do the home automations and stuff like that. And then once you get to the smart home side of things or home automations, a smart home, a lot of the devices, I mean, one of the first smart devices in homes was probably thermostats.
Yeah.
The smart thermostat that
the Nest
started learning those types of things, could change its stuff based on the weather and the outside temperature. So that's a smart device and a home automation that you kind of don't do anything with, right? It just does it automatically. So that's part of the connected home. But I mean, the other part is like, the Ethernet wires ran through the house, the speaker wires ran through the house, anything else that's actually connecting all these devices to the internet, and allowing the smart devices, if you so choose, to do the home automations and stuff like that,
Well, I want to pick your brain more on that here in a little bit, but what other manufacturer certification do you need for Digital Home Colorado, or that you have?
So in Colorado, there's not, the good thing for me is there wasn't an actual certification to become a low volt integrator, low energy integrator. So I just kind of have to go out to my vendors, see what certifications they require. Lutron is probably my biggest one, with the most training behind it. Just taking in-person trainings at their place in Pennsylvania, lots of at-home, go on your own pace style of training. Lots of those things. Other trainings I've had are just kind of, most online at your own pace. But certain vendors are require certain certifications so that they know that you are knowledgeable to sell their equipment. Yeah. So
what else? What other manufacturers are you certified in? Sonos?
Sonos, there's not necessarily a certification.
Okay.
Home networking certifications are some of those where you're testing on home networks. Sonos, they're actually, I'm on the advisory board for Sonos, so they're actually trying to figure out a way to get certified installers, learning from other vendors and stuff like that. So vendors reach out as well on trying to figure out, well, what are other people doing? What is Lutron doing? Lutron is a really good footprint for a lot of vendors.
Yeah.
A lot of vendors try to follow what Lutron does because they're so good at it.
Yeah.
Control systems, whole home control systems, whether that's Savant or Control4 or Josh.ai or something like that, those companies will require certifications on those as well. I'm certified for Savant and Josh.ai. So, so it's just more about, the more involved I want to get into it, it's kind of endless. I can dive as deep as I want and just get more certifications and things like that.
So we've been building custom homes for over 25 years. We've seen a lot of technology come and go pretty quickly, right? Like in 2000, we installed a whole home. I guess it wouldn't be smart, but it would be a connected home, right? With programming and Crestron controls. And if you wanted to do something in that house, you had to have a service tech come and reprogram the whole system, right? And so that's obsolete. That's almost like those intercom systems in the 70s.
New tone.
And it was a very expensive system.
Yep.
In 25 years ago.
Yes.
Well, how is the market changing so that things don't cost what that system cost? And how are we preventing everything becoming obsolete within, my next iPhone 25 so quick?
It's a very hard discussion to have with clients as well about the same thing. I had a client, had an older home, and I say older home, 18 years, had a very, very expensive connected programmed lighting solution. And to take it out and replace it, you basically had to replace it with another type of control system based on how the house was wired.
Okay.
So that's what you run into with those types of things. I had a conversation today with a friend of mine who is in the same type of business, and he's an electrician, asking me how I preferred a home to be wired. And I'd mentioned the same thing about, there's two ways you can do it. You can wire it traditionally, per code by the electrician, just wire it normal. And then we can go in and retrofit into a lighting system if we want. But that allows the homeowner to always fall back to an old system if they want. Or if they sell the home, you can just take out the switches and go back to a dumb home. Traditional wired light switch.
Yeah.
If you go into a higher end home, in some of these homes I've been into, and you do what's called a panelized system or something like that, where every light is wired down to, say, the mechanical room on a switchboard or something like that, replacing that when it's dead is very expensive. Yeah. And it happens all the time. I just went into a home 3 weeks ago who had one of the very first Lutron panelized systems.
Oh, yeah.
And some of their stuff, some of their relay switches, their relay light switches didn't work anymore. And the guy called and he's like, well, we'd really like to just replace a few of these and get them back to work. And I'm like, I mean, the solution for his home is literally replacing the whole lighting system.
Oh, wow.
Because his lighting system was 30 years old. It was Gen 1.
Yeah.
So it's a hard conversation to have. And again, if you fall back on just wiring it traditionally, we can make it really, really good. And things work really well, and retrofit keypads and lighting and all that other stuff. Depending on what they want to do.
Do you see more manufacturers of these products and switches and controls going to more of a control switch or a more proprietary custom approach?
A lot of it, for the higher end, a lot of it is proprietary custom for higher end homes. They're getting away from the traditional wiring of homes. And I don't really have an opinion on it. I mean, it's whatever the client wants at that time and what they want to do. Not many of them think about selling it at that time, or, I've had clients come in and call me and say, okay, we've had this. We absolutely don't want that. So there are clients that would walk into a home and be like, see the lighting system and go, well, I don't want to replace that when it stops working or something like that. So it's an interesting conversation because, once you go panelized, once you have everything wired down to the mechanical room, it's very hard to change that later. So,
and would you say that a panelized system, the wiring costs are higher than wiring a traditional home?
They're less, actually.
It's less to wire a panelized system?
It is less. Okay. It's a lot less work for the electrician, too.
Yeah.
Because all you're doing then, you're not actually running as much
coax to the
the 110. You're not wiring that from the switch load to the lighting load back to the panel and stuff like that. You're only wiring directly from the panel to the lights, so you're bypassing running the switches and all that stuff. So it is technically easier to do that if an electrician knows knowing what they're doing and has done it before, and it takes a couple times to do it until you realize. But then you just put in you can put in low voltage keypads, so you're just running category cable just to the switch points, and that's it. So the only thing tying that switch to the system is a category cable, so it's actually not controlling anything physically. It's all done via programming.
Okay.
So, but again, it's a huge decision for a client.
Yeah.
So to decide what way they want to go.
Okay. If you were to make a recommendation, I mean, there's different levels of custom homes, right? There's good, better, best, luxury is kind of how we go. So like for let's say the good to better custom home level, right? Where, hey, they're spending some money. I mean, this is a beautiful home, but it's not luxury level. What kind of system would you recommend to them?
I would 19 times, 39 times out of 40 recommend a traditionally wired system.
Okay.
It's easier on everybody. It's easier to change. It's easier to fix. It's easier to replace certain products. It's just, but again, I mean, that's what I would recommend to somebody, unless, of course, they had specific needs and specific requirements that they asked for.
And I guess some of those requirements or desires may force you into a panelized system.
It does.
Right?
It would, yeah. If I don't want to see 3 switches next to each other ever in my house, then you have to do something different.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like switches everywhere. And, it just, again, it's dependent on what the client wants and stuff like that. I mean, so if they're absolutely against, you got a big home and all of a sudden, I looked over some plans from you the other day, there's a 6-way switch in a house, Or
a 6-king box?
Well, there's a 6-way, but if you have a 6-way and a 5-way and a 4-way, you're bound to get
a lot
6
of
switches next to each other somewhere just based on that location. And a lot of people might not be like, well, I don't want to see a foot-long switch panel on my wall.
Would it make sense to do a hybrid?
Absolutely.
Like, hey, these rooms, they're always going to be traditional.
Yep.
Right? And then, but these main living areas, maybe we do a panelized lighting system?
And you can, and you don't necessarily have to. You can mix the panelized system in with a traditional system as well. Or, there's even, what they used to do, is you could put 6 or 10 dimmers on a wall in the mechanical room to fix those 10 specific spots that you wanted. But if they're going to do that, I'd recommend a panelized system a little bit more than just doing that. But yeah, you can definitely do a hybrid if the system calls for it.
All right.
For sure.
Thanks for listening to Built by Insights. Tune in next Friday to hear the second episode.